Hey everybody, it's Booray from Tampa, Florida, and in this video, we're going to take a look at the state of Fuji in the spring of 2023. Before we get started, as always, check out my podcast. It's called Photobomb. It's available anywhere that podcasts are found. I've got a group on Facebook called Pro Photo Talk with Booray Perry. And also follow me on Instagram. That's where all the fun happens. Just look for @BourayPerry on Instagram. And there's links down below. All right, so this French newspaper recently at a conference got a chance to interview some of the top folks at Fuji and asked them some pretty good questions and got some pretty good answers. So I kind of thought that'd be fun to make a video and just talk about this stuff, kind of get a conversation going about, what do you think is the state of Fuji right now, and what do you think about the things that they're saying? So probably the big topic was the new cameras that they've come out this year with, the X-H2, the X-H2s, and the X-T5. Now, Fuji is over the moon about what's happening with the X-T5. They say it's selling like hotcakes, selling better than the X-T4 did. This doesn't surprise me because the X-T4, while it was a great camera, I used it for a while, there were a lot of X-T3 users who didn't like it, specifically because of the flippy screen. There's a big schism between people who can handle a flippy screen and people who absolutely think it should be just burned in effigy. So I think that when they came out with the X-T5 and they got rid of the flippy screen, a lot of X-T3 users were like, great, now's my chance to upgrade. So they're upgrading to the X-T5, and I think a lot of X-T4 users are like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade to the X-T5 as well because it's affordable. And one of the great things about being a Fuji shooter is that it's more affordable for you to upgrade your camera than it is for a lot of the full-frame shooters who are out there, the Sonys and the Canons and the Nikon. So no big surprise that the X-T5 is doing well. My question is, how is the X-H2 and the X-H2s doing? And Fuji declined to comment on that. They said, well, they're doing fine. They don't feel like... Here's what they said. They said that the sales of the X-H2 and the X-H2s were not affecting the X-T5. Now, I thought that was interesting because that's the sort of thing that you say when the X-T5 is your flagship camera. And the X-H2 is supposed to be the flagship camera. And I'm an X-H2 shooter, and I'll tell you, when I look around at the videos and the stuff that I see, I get a feeling that I am definitely in the minority. The X-T5 is the camera of the moment for Fuji. Well, there's another camera of the moment we're going to talk about in a minute. But I do think it's interesting that they really feel that the X-T5, or at least they appear to feel that the X-T5, that's their main camera, and everything else kind of revolves around that. So the other camera that everything's kind of revolving around at the moment is, of course, the X100V. And if you follow my channel, then you know that there are tons of videos on this channel about the X100V because I have the V, I love it, and before that I had the S and I had the F as well, so that tells you how much I love this line of cameras. Well, you probably know a little while ago, some TikToker made a video about how much they love this camera, and it just exploded. So as it is now, it's very hard to get a brand new Fuji X100V, and if you want to buy one used, you'll actually sometimes pay more for it used than it was at retail. Now, here's what's great about this, is if you're like me and you've been using this camera for years and telling all of your friends how great it is, it's kind of a nice vindication to see that finally the whole world seems to be realizing how wonderful this camera is. And you can go to your wife and say, remember when I bought that $1,300 camera and you said it was a waste of money? Well, look at this. I was right. Look at all these millennials that are spending all this money now on this camera. That's the great thing. The bad thing is if you want to get into the Fuji X100V, you can't because you can't hardly get one. You're going to have to get one on back order or get in with one of the big retailers or something like that, and that kind of sucks. Other good thing is if you want to sell your Fuji X100V, there's never been a better time to do it. So Fuji says they have no plans to open up another factory to get more production of the X100V, but they said that if they stopped right now, if they stopped taking orders, it would still take 2 to 3 months for them to fill the orders, the back orders that they have on the Fuji X100V. So I just think that this is fantastic. There's something else they said I thought was interesting. They said that they feel the X100V is the gateway into the Fuji system. Now, I never really thought of it that way because the X100V is kind of a premium camera. It's not cheap. It's like $1,300. It's only a couple $100 less than the X-T5, right? Of course, it comes with a lens, and the X-T5, when you add a lens, is going to be more. But I never really thought of it as a gateway camera. because it has so many features, and I'll put some links right up here for you because I've done so many videos on the features of this camera. You know, the leaf shutter, the built-in ND filter, the optical viewfinder. It's got so many features that if you're not a really dedicated photographer, a dedicated hobbyist or a pro, you don't really use these features. It's not really worth it to you. So I've always thought of it as more of a camera that someone got who really knew photography and liked photography, and they were already into photography. And I can tell you my personal story is that I was a Canon shooter, and I bought a Fuji X100V for my walk-around camera, and then eventually I ended up switching to Fuji, partly because I loved that camera so much. So in that respect, it was a gateway camera for me. But for someone who doesn't even own a camera, would it be a gateway camera? I don't know about that. I would think, like they say, the X-T30, more likely to be, you know, a gateway camera. Or is it the X3? The X-H, what's the 3? The little tiny one doesn't have a viewfinder? You can tell me down in the comments. Anyway, I'm not so sure it's a gateway drug. But if a bunch of millennials are buying it, then yeah, maybe it will be their gateway drug. Now, here's another thing they talked about: the X-Pro4. We've all been waiting to see what was going to happen with the X-Pro4 because this has been a huge year for Fuji. What with the X-H2 and the X-H2s and the X-T5 coming out. Now the X-Pro4 would be next, but I personally think that they shouldn't be putting it out yet because they just don't want to saturate the market with too many new cameras. Fuji agrees. They say that the X-Pro4 is in development, it will be coming, and that they will release it when it's ready, period. It'll be ready when it's ready. And they also said, I thought this was interesting, they said it's going to be a very special camera. It has to be a very special camera. And I agree with that. I've always thought of the X100 line as being a very special, unique camera. There's no other series that's like it. But really, the X Pro line, they've gone more and more towards making that a very unique, niche camera, especially last year when they removed the screen. So you couldn't, you know, when they changed the screen, no other camera has a back screen like the X Pro 3. So I expect they will continue to keep their camera like that. But I'm looking to see what else they can do. I can't imagine what they can do at this point to make the X-Pro4 more different than it already is. Because, I mean, you can add something to it to make it different, but it's not enough to be different. It also has to be useful. Because I can't imagine a lot of people who buy the X-Pro4 and don't already own some other Fuji camera, right? If you're an X-Pro4 shooter, I would love it if you would leave a comment and talk a little bit about the X-Pro4 because I think it's a neat camera, but I also think that its drawbacks are greater than its gains. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah. So if you're an X-Pro4 shooter, give me some education. Teach me something in the comments. They also said that they're going to be working on some more firmware, that they do want to get their autofocus better. Everybody knows that Fujifilm probably has the worst autofocus in the business, so they are working on that and trying to make it better. I suspect that they will always lag behind Sony and Canon and Nikon, and that's just something we have to live with as Fuji shooters. And finally, is an interesting thing, they talked a little bit about lenses, and they said that they actually like the third-party lenses that are made for Fuji. They're big fans. That they haven't said no, we're not going to open up our mount. I mean, their mount's been open for years, but there's some people who don't want to open up their mount. They don't want people making lenses for their camera. And Fuji is like, no, come on, bring it. We love them. Bring on all these lenses. They say that it just helps people get more involved with the Fuji ecosystem. I think they're fine with the third-party lenses as long as their lenses are the best version of each lens. I think that's really what they're going for. But they also said, I thought this was interesting, that they say the average Fuji shooter has 2.5 lenses, 2.5 lenses. So some people have 2, some people have 3. I have more like 5, but I really only have 3 that I use. And yeah, that's about right. 3 lenses, maybe 2. You can get by with 2, but maybe 3. So it's just an interesting statistic. All right, listen, if you like the channel, be sure and check out the other stuff that I've got up. And also, if you haven't checked out my new series called Booray Explains, you definitely should. Because if you're a new photographer or new to this world, you will definitely love this series because in every single episode, I talk about something specific to photography, some phrase or some term, and I pick it apart for you. And even if you already know all this stuff, you'd be surprised as how sometimes you'll pick up something you didn't quite understand about dynamic range by watching that series, and I'll put a link up here at the top for you. Also, throw me a like and a subscribe, and well, come back again soon because more videos are on the way. Thanks for watching.